You just know that the Duke basketball offseason never stops. Duke basketball, period, never stops. We've got a lot to talk about as Duke goes into the month of May. Where do things stand? And who better to have on our program than good friend Steve Wiseman back with us on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. Thanks so much for making us a part of your day here on Friday, May 2nd, 2025. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop for everything going on inside the life of Duke athletics. And today we got to continue to talk about the offseason for Duke basketball under head coach Jon Scheyer. And joining us on today's program will be our very good friend Steve Wiseman from the Raleigh News and Observer. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Also, make sure that you watch our show each and every day on YouTube. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel to see the content each and every day. So without further ado, let's bring him on into the program. The aforementioned Steve Wiseman is here with us. And Steve, we were just talking, feels like just yesterday, we were at the Final Four there in San Antonio watching the season come to a close for Duke. Now a month has passed by already, and forward we go, man. I hope you're doing well.
I am. Time marches on, doesn't it? Doesn't wait for anybody. And we were recovering from the NCAA tournament run and the great season that it was, but ended on a sour note, no question about that. But a lot was accomplished. But then it's time to move on. It's time to build next year's roster. That's kind of how it goes. And in the transfer portal era now, with rosters are rebuilt in April. It's a big month for getting ready for next season. You don't have time to mull over what just happened. Almost, you have to move forward, and that's what Duke has done.
It's the first time you and I are speaking since the season came to a close, and immediately after the game, really for a week or two after the fact, if I'm being honest, probably even longer than that, it doesn't feel real that team being as good as they were, the season was over and they wouldn't get a chance to play basketball anymore. And even beyond that they weren't the team that ultimately hoisted the trophy when it was all said and done. You went back and forth trying to decide, are you more stunned that Duke lost or more stunned in the manner in which they lost that game in the Final Four? And it truly was one of those things where it feels like the further away from the game we get, the more appreciative, like anything, you will be that team was able to put together and put the run that they had.
35-4 is an incredible season. I mean, there's no question about that. And winning the ACC championship at the regular season and the tournament, that doesn't happen very often. They did it. They hang banners for that in all arenas in the ACC. So anyone wants to diminish that, they're fools. Okay, that's the thing. And getting to the Final Four is a big deal, right? So yes, to answer your earlier question, I'm more stunned in how it came down because this has not been this team's MO. They had been, you get a double-digit lead late in the game like that, even up 9 with 2 minutes to go or 7, and we can go down. We can parse it and rehash it again, but you all know what I'm talking about. And they finished off games like that. Now, they never got a chance to have to make a winning play in the last 15, 20 seconds of a game this year. They never were in that situation. The few times they didn't do it. So that will be something this team will carry forward. So that's the sour part of that. But the best part is, I mean, they did accomplish so much, and there will be three new banners going in Cameron Indoor Stadium. Nobody's ever going to be sad about making the Final Four. I mean, there's no way anybody would be that way. You're sad about not winning it all and getting number 6, of course. But you have to look at the season as a whole, and there was a lot was accomplished.
And now that the season has come to a close, decisions had to be made for a lot of the players, whether or not they wanted to come back for another season at Duke or go ahead and start their professional journeys. And so for 4 of the guys in Cooper Flagg, Con Knippel, Kaman Malawach, and Tyrese Proctor, they've made the decision to head off to the NBA. Sion James out of eligibility. He's on draft boards now, which is incredibly exciting for him to take that next step there. When we look at those 4 guys, though, that made the early declaration to go ahead and start their professional careers, it felt like this was kind of the obvious case that they would be there.
Yeah, obviously zero surprise with 3 freshmen. We all knew they were going to be lottery picks or top 15, whatever it may be. They're going to go high, and there's no doubt that this is what they had to do for their careers. It was the plan, from day one with those 3. Tyrese had a little bit of a decision to make. He has another year of eligibility. He's not projected as high as those guys are. You see him sometimes in the second round, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's gonna have to work to get back into the bottom of the first round, probably at the offseason workouts. But here's a guy who's been through 3 years. He's ready to be a pro, and there's nothing wrong with that. Guys are. He'll make his way, and there's he is his agent and his family all have confidence, and Coach Scheyer, frankly, the people have confidence that he'll have a good pro career and he'll get going and make his way. However, maybe it's not as with the NIL now, there's a chance he could have made more money by staying back at Duke. Frankly,
Right.
that is a different world we're in now. But he chose again. This is his life, and he was ready after 3 years of college to go ahead and become a pro. So that was the only little lingering thing that was out there that he might come back. But he clearly knew what he wanted to do.
The stars are aligning for Duke to have another number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft, with Cooper Flagg's name likely to be said first when we get to June and once that draft gets started. When you look at what Flagg did throughout the course of the year, and knowing as many years as you've been on that beat covering Duke basketball and college athletics as a whole, I mean, when you sit back and reflect, Steve, Cooper Flagg, the person, and then the player, what do you think you're going to remember about him?
Yeah, I have to say, you're saying that this will be the 4th number 1 pick that I've covered, going back to Kyrie, Zion, and Paulo Banchero. So wow, yeah, that's a lot, isn't it? But but Cooper, again, he does so many things on the court to impact winning, and with his defense, with his passing, with his, defense, blocking shots, getting in passing lanes, one-on-one defender, guarding anybody on the court. He can guard a point guard, he can guard a center at his height. And he's only going to get better. He's only 18. I mean, he won't be as good as a rookie as he will be in his 5th year, probably. So he's one that, everybody that analyzes him from a pro perspective says, his floor is so high that he's going to be a great number 1 pick. Because
Sure.
Sheldon Williams, my podcast partner on Believe in Duke, had compared him to Scottie Pippen, right? And because he did so many things on the court. And some people took that as a slight, like, oh, he's not Jordan, he's Scottie Pippen. Well, Scottie Pippen was a top 50 all-time player, right? So that's a pretty good thing. And if that's what Cooper is, that's a pretty good thing. I think anybody would take that on their team.
Yeah, no, and the fact that he, it felt like this was coming all along. He leaves high school a year early. He reclasses. You don't see every college freshman get the opportunity to play with Team USA before they ever even play a game of college basketball. That was the case for Cooper Flagg. And then he finally got to the sport. And it's like, hey, this guy's a little too good for college hoops. I mean, it was really impressive. The plays he was making, even offensively, there was big conversations about whether or not he'd be the leading scorer for this team. And night in, night out, when he wanted to take over the game offensively, he certainly was capable of doing that too.
He did whatever they needed on whatever night they needed it, pretty much. Obviously, missing the last shot against Houston will be the lasting memory. But the overall point is true. Like if he needed to score 30 or 42 points, he could do that. If he needed to score 18 and have 8 assists and 7 rebounds, he did that. So yeah, he checked all the boxes, no question about it.
Okay, so Duke had a couple of players make the decision to go to the NBA. They also had some players decide, I'm not done with college basketball and Durham is the place for me. Let's talk about that and what Duke looks like as they go into this next season after we take our first time out here on today's show. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product information to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for the extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Supply House is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, we got Steve Wiseman here with us from the Raleigh News and Observer. We talked about players making the decision to head off to the NBA. Other guys made the decision to come back and play at Duke. We can get into some of those individual decisions here in just a moment. But simply put, as a whole, Steve, I mean, it's hard to find teams out there in college basketball that didn't have anybody on scholarship make the decision to enter the transfer portal. And once again, Jon Scheyer and his staff fall into that category.
Yeah, it's second time in 3 years or whatever. You go back a couple of years that happened too, and it speaks to the healthy communication that the staff and the players have all season long. It's just not something they get to the end of the year and go, okay, what are we going to do? They talk about it through the year. They probably don't make their decision, obviously their final decision, until the time comes when the deadline's here. That's how decisions get made, is when deadlines are imposed. But they talk about it all year, and what's your career look like going forward? What's next year going to look like? Pat Gongba is a great example. I think he's going to be a tremendous player for Duke next year. I think Duke fans, we all saw it in little stretches this year because he was coming back from injury. He needed to get more stamina and all that, but he's going to be ready. He'll have a full offseason to get ready to be the starting center for Duke next year. And he's somebody with his size. He could have tested the NBA waters and seen what was out there, and somebody would have probably drafted him because, again, the body type, right? But they knew he wanted to do that. Isaiah Evans, same thing. Here's the guy. He's in the draft pool, but he's going to come back. He's in there to get feedback, and that'll be happening. And he's fine with coming back. And so that was part of his process. And there was no surprise there. They all talked about it and knew what was going to happen.
How big of a deal is it specifically that Isaiah Evans is coming back for Duke next season? I mean, I'm beyond fired up that he's going to be back for another season.
Yeah, I think everybody involved with the program is, and he is too. He wants to, have more minutes. He wants to have more consistent minutes. He knows, he's a freshman. He had up and down play. He was sometimes, fully in the rotation, sometimes late in the NCAA tournament. He didn't play as much. He knows he has to shore up his defense. He's done so much work in that area. We talked about it all year. And he's a lot better than he was, but there's still more room to grow there. And that's what he's going to feel the offseason doing. But the excitement thing is the explosive scoring that he provides. I mean, if he can play 25, 30 minutes a game and average 15 to 18 points, which is he's fully capable of doing, he could be a first-team All-ACC player doing that. If he can improve defensively enough to earn that kind of minutes, and I think he will. I'll be surprised if he doesn't.
And I think it's set up to be a little bit more, to show off a little bit more of his offensive game. Clearly, if you could shoot the basketball, continue to do that because you do it at such a high level. If you are Isaiah Evans, shooting greater than 40% for three, but over 80% of his shot attempts this year were three-pointers. You look at his size and height and just everything there that you got in the wing. We saw him dunk a couple of times, but it feels like there's even an opportunity. Maybe that's some of what he'll hear when league executives at the NBA start to evaluate him. Is like, what else is there in your offensive toolkit, and why not come back to college to sort of expand that?
Exactly, and it'll allow him to grow physically, to get stronger. We saw the way Con Knippel drove to the basket and finished at his bulkiness, right? He was a stronger guy than Slim, right? Yeah, that's what we call Isaiah Slim for. If he can put on some weight and get a little stronger, he'll be able to make those kind of moves too. And that's the kind of plays. That's why Con is going to be a lottery pick, because he can hit threes and make those plays and defend that way. So that's the goal for Isaiah, and I think he can get there with Duke's help.
So you look at Duke, another player making the decision to return for a junior season. He's already had 2 years in the program, is Caleb Foster. What an up and down year it was for Foster, and just the online discussions that everybody wanted to have about his playing and whether or not he was going to be back for next season. He really turned it on down the stretch and was really trying to help Duke do everything possible to win this past season, even though if he's honest with himself, I'm sure he was frustrated that he wasn't able to play as much through certain times throughout the year. What a win that is for him to still remain committed to the program and want to come back for a junior year.
Yeah, it gives Duke that third year guy that you don't get very often these days, and knows the program and can help, be a captain or mentor, even unofficially, the freshmen that come in or transfers that come in that aren't familiar with Duke and what it's like to play with Duke on your chest and what that means when you go into a visiting arena. And he showed a lot of toughness and mental fortitude to get through what he went through this year by starting off as a starter and then seeing his minutes diminish to the point where he didn't even play in the senior night game with Wake Forest. because he was so far down the rotation, they didn't want to
Yeah.
embarrass him by putting him in with basically the walk-ons, right? That's what it would have been. And so, but again, talk about the communications that go on during the season. That was all talked about. They hashed it out. They worked it out. They had the tough conversations about what needs to happen, and he got better quickly. Like the next game at UNC and that win that closed the regular season, he played well in that game. He impacted winning in that very next game. So there was a lot of talk about is he going to transfer already because he's not playing, and then immediately turns around and makes a big impact. So he can do a lot of that next year too for this team.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about that diving tip out that he had to extend a fast break there in the UNC game. And if a guy was not committed to a squad at that point, I don't know that you're seeing that level of effort that we saw from Caleb Fott. Even in the Final Four game, like I thought he was really aggressive rebounding the basketball when he needed to and really starting the break for Duke in that sense. And I'd imagine that's a little bit of what he's going to do going into this next season. So looking at Duke basketball, some fresh news really within the past 24 hours that your coaching staff expands and a new guy has entered the fold that is not a name familiar to Duke basketball whatsoever. He's a native of Jamestown, Ohio, which certainly isn't in that Raleigh-Durham footprint or neck of the woods and that sort of thing. But Evan Brads is the new assistant coach. How did we get here, Steve?
Yeah, John has shown he'll make the out of the box hires, hasn't he? Right? Jay Lucas started that, and so like bringing him in from Kentucky, so we knew somebody was coming in. Obviously, with Jay moving down to Miami, and so John went with the NBA route. The line between college and professional now is so blurred that it doesn't even really exist anymore. So it makes sense that you bring in a guy with player development experience. And so when you go to a recruit and they say, we're going to get ready for the NBA, Duke already has a great track record. Well, now we brought in this guy. Right. And look who he worked with. He was with the Celtics, when Jason Tatum was coming up, and then out with the Jazz. So he's got experience in two different organizations, not just one. So he's got that a lot of different aspects to bring into his coaching realm. And he was a great player at Belmont. He's two-time Ohio Valley Player of the Year. So John always gets out there and takes some shots now after practice. So with the guys, I guess Evan will do the same thing. That'll be a heck of a one-on-one if those two guys get going.
Yeah, no kidding. It's going to be a whole lot of fun to watch as he transitions to the college game. Then obviously recruiting becomes a big impact of it. But it's like if you're Evan Brads and you're jumping to college basketball, I don't know that you could pick a better guy to learn that piece from than somebody like Jon Scheyer and the rest of the whole Duke footprint that they put together in terms of the recruiting. So if there was pushback, I know that would already be the direction people want to go is like, where's the recruiting experience? What does this look like? I think obviously he's ended up at the right place. That's going to be a moot point.
Yeah, the infrastructure is there for him to step in with his background, even not having a college recruiting background, but being a former college player, he knows what that's about. But also, again, it's the program around Duke. I mean, he's going out and representing Duke. I mean, that carries so much weight in the recruiting world. We don't have to begin to even explain that. Anybody who has to have that explained to him doesn't know what they're talking about. So, yeah, that gives him a leg up anyway to start out.
All right, so then the final question remains, what's next? What else is there to still do with the Duke basketball squad as they get set for the upcoming offseason and the year ahead? We'll take one more timeout and start to wrap up after this. Dude, just want to say thank you so much for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen and first watch each and every day. Make sure that you subscribe to our podcast feed and wherever it is that you listen to your podcast, subscribe on our YouTube channel as well. Next, for your second listen, go ahead and make sure that you check out Locked On College Basketball with hosts Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. Really proud of this show within the Locked On Podcast Network. They're talking about college basketball each and every day. And as we so often discuss, Duke basketball at the forefront of what college hoops is all about. So plenty of Duke talk that you could find over at Locked On College Basketball as well. Be sure to go check that out and leave it a 5-star rating and written review. All right, Steve Wiseman's here with us from the Raleigh News and Observer. We've been talking all things Duke basketball. The athletics calendar is now in May. Before you know it, we'll have fall camp up and going for Manny Diaz as he gets set for another football season. Tons of excitement around his football program, and excited to talk about that with you in the days and weeks to come, Steve. But looking at Duke basketball specifically, when you start to look at their roster, they've still got openings for players to come and enter the fold when you look at kind of the scholarships that have already been allotted this season.
Yeah, they have room for more. They certainly do. Cedric Coward, the former Washington State player, who is still in the draft pool, trying to go through that process, has said he'll play at Duke next year if he plays college basketball. That would be a huge addition. That's a big guy to get. That's a perimeter scorer to go along with Isaiah Evans and Caleb Foster in the backcourt, and then you got Caden Boozer at point guard. So and so you've got a lot of firepower there if Cedric comes back. And by the way, he's healthy. He had the rotator injury, but everything points to him being healthy and ready to go for this season if it comes to that. But he does have some late first round prospects, right? So
I saw the workout videos that are out there, and I'm starting to get worried. At first I'm Mr. Optimistic, Steve, that this is going to happen.
yeah,
Then you watch the guy play, and it's like, oh my goodness! He might be ready
yeah,
to go right now.
he might be. And so there's no guarantee there. So Duke has to move appropriately and think about, okay, what's the backup plan here? What are we going to do to fill this if he doesn't do it? And we have till May 28th until you have to withdraw to keep your NCAA eligibility. So just a few weeks here, but he's going to go through the combine and they'll get a lot more answers there. The agent is in contact with Rachel Baker, the general manager, and John Scheyer. This is all, again, an open conversation. There's nobody trying to hide anything or slip something past somebody. It's all a healthy deal that's going on now, and that's what you want. Same thing with Isaiah. Oops, pardon me. Like I said, with Isaiah, he'll drop out, when the time comes, but he has to do it.
Yeah.
And so there's always going to be a little bit of uncertainty until May 28th comes or whenever that day is, and he drops out. So yeah, there's still some roster building to do. There's some room to go after. You can still go after some high school kids that may be out there and available. We know they made a move for Nate Ament. They were talking about him. Shelton Henderson decided to go down and play at Miami with Coach Lucas. And Shelton was somebody that thought there would be some transfers out of Duke, and there wasn't. So it didn't free up the space he thought for playing. And so that, again, was something that both sides were on board with. And when everybody decided to come back, it was like, Shelton, you better make a place for you to play here. So you might want to play somewhere else. So that's the kind of stuff that's going on right now. A lot of conversations. And so there's still going to be some movement to go going forward here for the next month.
Does it feel like it's more in that high school direction, given at where we're at in the transfer portal, or could there be, Sion James is mid-May is when we found out that he was going to be making the decision to come over to Duke. Could there be a name that kind of pops out of the blue that already has college experience?
Yeah, there definitely could be. That is something that you always have plan A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And if you're honest with people and you tell them this is where we are, Cedric's our priority. But if he decides to stay in, we could have a place for you if you want to do that. And so it's just free agency. This isn't what we're used to. It's what we should be used to now, right? So it's different, but it's reality.
I look at the team specifically. Tell me if you agree here, Steve. I think there's always a need for the help ball handling. If there's another guard available that's maybe got a little bit of experience to come in and aid Caleb Foster in what he's doing, help continue to show Caden Boozer the ropes and that sort of thing. And then also front court depth. When we've talked about the injuries, clearly that Pat Gongwa was coming back from. We saw Malik Brown get banged up throughout the course of the season. Cameron Boozer. Anytime you could have some of those big bodies in the front court, I think would be a benefit for this Duke team as well.
No question. And I know that they expect major impact from Nick Hamina, the 6'11" freshman that's coming in. So, but again, he's a freshman, right? So it's a little tougher for freshmen, big guys to adjust to the game than the guards. That's a common thing. And so you want to have some more depth there. And frankly, Malik Brown's shoulder is a factor here. I mean, he dislocated it twice on basically non-contact plays. That's a scary thing. So you want to get that shored up and make sure he's going to be able to get through a whole season. And every game, you're not on pins and needles. Is his shoulder going to pop out? Right. That's a real concern right now until they get that addressed. And I'm sure that is obviously what's going to happen in the off season. You may even see, a procedure or something to get that done. That would be a positive thing for Malik and for everybody if that's necessary. But that's kind of what we're talking about here. So yeah, they'll be looking for help in anywhere they can. They still have roster spots available.
The last thing kind of to look at for Duke in the weeks to come throughout the course of the offseason, Steve, when you look at next season, you got to put a schedule together, right? And we're hearing reports about maybe the league is going to shorten it from 20 games to 18 games, and all of that still remains to be seen. But also in the non-conference, there are still games that need to pop up and be on the radar for Duke fans to be aware of. We've seen recent reports about possibly a a Michigan game set to be added there in Washington, D.C. Is there any other conversations currently taking place that you're aware of, Steve, or what do you expect from a timeline maybe in getting a schedule put together for the Duke squad?
Yeah, I would expect them to go to Michigan State, probably.
Okay.
There's been a lot of talk about that game. That goes back to, if you remember, during the COVID year when the Champions Classic was played in Durham,
Right.
and Michigan State came here and played. Duke owes them a game up there for that arrangement, and so
I forgot about that. Yeah. Wow.
yeah, so that would be kind of cool to see those
Yeah.
two teams play. I was up there last time they played, 2019, and that was kind of a cool game. So again, that would be a neat thing. They're already playing Arkansas and Chicago. They're already playing Michigan and in DC. They're already playing Champions Classic, which I think is Kansas this year, if I remember right. Yeah, it has to be Kansas. So that's strong right there, right off the bat. And if they get 2 extra games to play because the ACC shrinking the conference schedule, even better. I know that's what John wants to do. It worked last year. It got his team ready to play deep into the tournament, and that's what you want.
And then we'll see. Obviously, there's an ACC SEC challenge, a good foe coming up there for Duke, and that setup too. I mean, holy cow, this could be another kind of non-conference gauntlet that they're going through.
And I would think that would be a road game since Duke was home last year. I would be surprised if it's not. So that would be, again, another great challenge. It could be down at Alabama, right? It could be
Right.
rematch of the Elite Eight. That's kind of what they like to do in those things, right? So that'd be pretty cool.
All right. Well, as we continue to move forward here, Steve, always so appreciative of the time that you give us. Tell us about all your coverage over there at the Raleigh News and Observer and how people can support you.
Yeah, you can follow me as you see on the screen there if you're watching on YouTube. Steve Wiseman NC is my Twitter X handle. Newsobserver.com is our website, and you can follow not only the coverage of Duke specifically, but we cover the ACC as a whole, and we'll have somebody down at the ACC meetings here coming up next week in Amelia Island, next couple weeks here. They'll talk about that schedule and what's going to happen. So all sports, but we got it all covered there.
Steve, we'll do this again soon. Okay.
Very good. Thanks, JJ.
All right, that's Steve Wiseman joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Really appreciative of his time. That's going to do it for our show here today and wrap up another week. Be sure to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you on Monday. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.